to review an amateur radio station today because it's Field Day. Field Day was started in 1933, and it's an exercise done by 35,000 amateur radio operators around the country. We set up portable stations, typically within the last 6 or 7 hours, operate for 24 hours around the clock, and then it's scored. It's mildly a contest, but mostly it's on emergency preparation. This event was supposed to be at my son's industrial site where he has a solar power plant, and we were going to run our ham station from solar power for extra points. Unfortunately, though, because of the virus and logistics and the rest of it, we're not able to do it there. So we're going to do a very quick walkthrough of a ham radio station here in my house, and we'll go outside and we'll start with the antenna. And you've seen how I'm on the handheld radio. You get to look at the neatness of the home out the back door and to the antenna farm, which is actually just a vertical antenna. It's 28 feet tall, multi-band antenna, hinged so I can bring it down. It's got a crank on it so I can bring it down for maintenance. Normally in the field, we have a portable tower and 2 or 3 wire antennas. The propagation is not very good this year, so the band activity is not so good. We haven't had a sunspot in 2 weeks, so the station activity is low. But here's the ham station itself. And I'll turn up and see if we can hear anybody.
Yeah, it looks like. Yeah, I'm gonna hang up. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a ham contact in process. Unfortunately, with the low propagation, the number of stations is pretty limited. But you see, it's a pretty simple setup. 1 antenna, a portable transceiver, and the upper box is an antenna tuner, and that's all you need, a way to go. The logging is done on computer. Let's see if we can bring that up. So there's the logging, and you can see right now I've only had 3 contacts. There they are. And they are all Idaho, Arizona, and Western Washington. At the end, we just email this back into the God computer back in Massachusetts for scoring. So are there any questions? Hold on, I'll put on the headset, answer any questions.
I heard it's easy. I heard it's easier to become a ham operator now than it used to be.
It's a tech license.
It's a bit easier than it has been in the past. I was originally licensed when I was 15 years old, and had to learn 5-word-a-minute Morse code. But we had sort of learned it because I was a Boy Scout, and we had to learn the Morse code in Boy Scouts. So in those days, you had a license, and novice license, good for 1 year, non-renewable. So you had to move up to general or upper. You know, it's kind of like the military, either up or out. Then I discovered girls in college, and ham radio just blanked out for exactly, and I'm not kidding, exactly 50 years. So I left it when I was 15 years old, and I rejoined when I was 65 years old as a result of Boy Scout work, because I went to the National Jamboree, and ham radio was a key part of that jamboree, and that motivated me to learn. And so for about the last 15 years, I've been restarted and active. Any other questions? The technology in ham radio these days. Say again?
How many watts of power does your rig have? How many watts of power does your 3 contacts have?
The common denominator generally is 100 watts. It's like a 100-watt light bulb. it's what you can package into a single transceiver in a box that you can install and carry around. Some of them go to 200 watts commercially. Then if you want to go above that, you plug in an amplifier, and the amplifiers can go up to 1.5 kilowatts. They go up to 1,500 watts. Since radio is logarithmic proportional, the mere fact you're on the air is a good starting signal. And when we go from 100 watts to 1,500 watts, that's a 10 dB or 15 dB increase, which is significant but not earth-shaking. Basically, you can hear them at 100 watts marginally, and then at 1,500 watts, it would be rock solid. So it's not a life and death difference. 100 watts can go around the world depending on propagation. So I've talked to India, Antarctica, South America, desert islands, Christmas Island, Russia, a lot of Russia contacts. So 100 watts with a vertical in the backyard, when the propagation cooperates, you can cover the world.
Use 470 or 144 band or some other band?
Well, those are UHF and VHF, which is good for local communication. So they're line of sight. So it turns out I'm a co-manager of a repeater. So up on a hilltop at an elevation of 3,000 feet, we have KE6 MVR, KE6 YUV repeater. So it has about 120-mile footprint because of its 3,000 foot altitude. And it's on 144 or 2 meters. The talk around the world stuff is on shortwave, and typically it's around 7 megahertz to 25 megahertz. All right, any further questions? Oh, the other thing too, that one thing captivates me on this is digital. The Morse code component is no longer required, so it's easier to get a license. There's 35 multiple choice questions, and they give you all the questions and all the answers. So the license pool is 35 questions drawn from a list of 350. Some years ago, 10 years ago, my son was home from college with no other activity in mind. And so I said, you're going to get a ham radio license. And I thought it would be a father-son bonding experience so I could sit down with him and we could go through all of this. And he says, Dad, he says, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. So he did a home study 3 nights in a row. And on Saturday came to take the exam. And I said, are you ready? He says, well, yeah, I've taken 3 practice tests and I passed them all. So we went in, and so he got his license. Then there's a second level after that, general, which is again 35 questions. And then finally extra, which is 50 questions. The first level is really mostly on regulation. The second level is on operating practice. And the third level is on technology. And only about 5% of hams get the extra class. They go that far because it conveys you essentially zero additional capability, but you get bragging rights, and you also get a short call sign if you wish. Like my call sign is K6KN, Kilo 6, Kilo November, and to get that short call sign, you have to be extra class. And it's also my license plate. And I've even been pulled over by a CHP asking about the license plate, because he said, what's that funny license plate? Is that like an ambassador or a member of Congress or something? And I didn't know. It's a radio operator. And he said, well, I ran that plate 3 times through the computer system and it didn't register. So you're not registered with the CHP on the license number. And so we had a chat. He was very nice about it.
So Bill, it's John Peters here. My call sign was HEJ, Ham Electrician John, and some numbers. But in order to take advantage of the propagation, do you stay up weird hours at night?
Say again. I'm having a little hard hearing that. Was it with propagation?
To take advantage of the propagation, you have to keep track of which hours are good. Do you stay up late at night?
Yeah, it's heavily dependent on sunspots. There's an 11-year cycle, and we are at the worst of the worst of the worst of the sunspot cycle. So it can only get better from here. John Peters also is a very active ham, and at times he's what they call a official observer, where he has to be kind of like a traffic cop. He monitors the ham radio bands, and for people that misbehave, he sends them a nasty gram. So let's turn back to Kevin now. I appreciate your
John
interest.
Draper has his hand up. He's
Yeah, I wanted to remind you that the Zoom, if you go to the participants dialog box down at the bottom, there's a little button that says raise hand. And so you see in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, this little hand there. Now I'm going to lower my hand, and now it goes away. So whenever I have a question, I would raise my hand. But apparently you guys aren't familiar with that feature. So I wanted to say something else also. I put a little bit information on what I'm working on in the text chat. So read it at your leisure. And if you're interested in having me talk about it, let me know, and I can give you some stuff I'm working on. It's quite a fascinating technology. So that's all I have to say for now. But if you're interested later, I can talk about it. Carry on, guys.
Okay, back to Kevin. Thank you.
all right. For those of you who got the batting order, you probably know who's next. Right now, I don't have it in front of me, so I guess it's Jax.
Hi there.
And